I can see an obvious body. It was a pretty bad scene, a lot of blood, especially around the head area.
It was supposed to be a quick weekend getaway, but 2 nights later, Emily Lambert was gone. The last time anyone saw her was on this security footage. She was walking out of a bar alone, staring straight ahead, looking angry, or maybe hurt. Something is clearly off. Her boyfriend told police that she got into a car with a man wearing a cowboy hat, a total stranger. And according to him, that was the last time he saw her. But then her body was found, abandoned in a field with clear marks of torture. The way she was left behind wasn't just cruel, it felt deliberate. So what happened to Emily after she walked out of that bar? How did a weekend away turn into her final moments? And who's lying about what really happened? This is the case of the teacher whose romantic getaway turned into a nightmare, dragged to death. 3 days before she vanished, on Friday, February 28th, 2014, Emily Lambert was in a good place. She was a 30-year-old elementary school teacher and a single mom to 2 girls. Life was busy, but this weekend, this was her break. Her kids were with her parents, and she was off to Carlsbad, New Mexico to spend time with her boyfriend, Robert Early. He worked on an oil rig over 400 miles away, so they didn't get to see each other often. They'd been dating for a few months. He made her laugh. He was great with her kids. Even her parents liked him. So Emily made the 8-hour drive and pulled into the Stevens Inn where Robert was staying and got ready for a relaxing weekend. And at first, everything seemed fine. She even called her mom on Saturday to say things were going great. But by Sunday, everything changed. That afternoon, her mom, Donna, got a strange message from Robert telling her to call him. And when she did, he told her something no mother ever wants to hear. Emily was missing.
He was telling me that they had gone to the bar and they were having a good time, and that Emily had left and he didn't know where she had gone.
Donna told him to call 911 immediately. Then she and Emily's dad packed up the girls, got in the car, and made the long, anxious drive to Carlsbad. Panicked, overwhelmed, and praying this was just a misunderstanding. That afternoon, Robert finally made the call.
Yes, my girlfriend left last night. We were at the Stevens bar and I'm staying in the hotel there, and she hasn't made it back to the hotel. I don't know where she went. She was talking about leaving with some other guy, and she hasn't made it back.
He sounded worried, telling the dispatcher that he'd been pacing around all morning thinking maybe she got picked up for public intoxication or maybe just wandered off somewhere.
She's in a really cute dress and some high heels, and I had her ID, and her phone was in the room on the charger.
At first, it sounded like a drunk argument that got out of hand, a misunderstanding, something that would clear up once she turned up. But she didn't, because Emily didn't just leave. And whatever happened after she walked out of that bar was far worse than anyone was ready for. Detectives didn't waste time. The moment the missing person report came in, they went straight to Robert's motel room, hoping to get answers. What they found was not comforting. Emily's clothes were still neatly folded, her car was parked just outside, and her purse still inside the vehicle. This wasn't someone who packed up and ran off. Emily didn't plan to be gone for long. So where was she? When they questioned Robert, he stayed calm, cooperative, even helpful. He walked detectives through the timeline of their weekend from the moment Emily arrived late Friday night. They grabbed drinks at the hotel bar, hung out until around midnight, and then headed up to the room. The next day, they went out to eat, did some shopping, hit up a few nearby bars, and eventually made their way back to the motel. That night, they had drinks and played pool at the bar on site. It sounded like a regular weekend, and to back it up, Robert even had photos on his phone of the places they visited together. Nothing suspicious. But then, he added something else. According to Robert, there was another guy at the bar that night who kept flirting with Emily. She was wearing a short dress, playing pool, and every time she leaned over the table, the guy would just stare. At first, he let it go. Emily was used to getting attention. But the longer the night went on, it started to get to him. She kept going to the bathroom and coming back with comments about how guys wouldn't leave her alone, and that's when she dropped a line that really stuck with him.
She was like, "This guy over here said if you don't want to take care of me, or you don't take care of me right, he'll take me home."
Now, maybe it was a joke. Maybe Emily was trying to get a rise out of him, but it worked.
I was like, if that's what you want, Emily, you want to go out with some stranger you don't even know, go ahead. I was like, nobody said that you had to be with me, you know? And she's like, I'm leaving.
Robert assumed she just needed to blow off steam, maybe go sit in the car, smoke. So he left the bar, went to the room, had a few more drinks, and passed out, convinced she'd come walking back through the door. But when he woke up the next morning, she still wasn't there. He admitted to the detectives that he had lost it, punched her car, kicked the driver's side door out of frustration.
I was pretty pissed off, and she still hadn't come back. I remember kicking her car.
Where did you kick her car?
Just on the driver's side. I was like, man, where's she at?
And at that point, in his words, he just figured she'd left with someone else. To the detectives, it sounded like the story of a frustrated, possibly heartbroken boyfriend. But there was just one problem. Things were not adding up. And as they kept digging into his version of events, the entire story started to unravel. Detectives immediately started searching the hotel for any kind of security footage. There weren't any cameras outside and nothing in the hallways or parking lot, but just off the lobby, in the bar where Robert and Emily had their last argument, they spotted one. A single camera aimed right at the front entrance. They pulled up the footage and rewound to the time that Robert said Emily left the bar. At exactly 11:30 p.m., Emily walked out of the bar alone. She wasn't staggering. She wasn't stopping to talk to anyone. She looked angry. And after that, nothing. There was no footage of where she went next, no cameras outside, no witnesses. It was like she vanished the second she stepped out of the frame. While one detective was reviewing the footage, another sat down with Emily's concerned parents and her two little girls at the gas station. Her youngest looked straight at him and said something that hit him hard.
The youngest one looked at me and said, my mommy's just lost and you're gonna bring her home, right? And at that point I told the child, yes, I'm gonna do my best to bring her home.
But behind the scenes, things weren't looking good, especially inside the interrogation room. Robert's story was starting to fall apart. He tried to keep up the act, calm, logical, helpful, the kind of guy who would never lose his temper, but the detectives were not buying it. And the longer they talked to him, the more cracks started to show.
You just don't seem the type of person to me that the girl comes up and says, fuck you, and turns around and walks off and you let that happen. You don't strike me as that type, dude. You just don't.
And he was right. Something about Robert's whole performance felt off, rehearsed, like a version of himself he wanted them to believe. And then came the confirmation. Investigators reached out to a few of Robert's exes, and what they described wasn't a calm, level-headed guy. They said he was controlling, angry, the kind of person who would go from 0 to furious in seconds. With that, detectives asked him to take a polygraph. Robert agreed instantly, sat for the test without hesitation. He looked completely at ease. There was no sweating, no shaking, no obvious panic, but the results told a different story.
You did not pass the polygraph. Wasn't even close.
Immediately, Robert started getting defensive, claiming that the machine was wrong and demanding a retest.
I mean, I didn't lie on anything in the polygraph test. I don't know where Emily's at. I don't know where her location is. When she left the bar, she left. I mean, that's all I know.
The man who had once looked like a heartbroken boyfriend now looked a lot more like a suspect with something to hide. So detectives kept digging. They interviewed more people at the motel, and that's when they found someone, a guest who had been staying in the room right next to Robert's. He told police he heard yelling that night, a loud fight between a man and a woman. It went on long enough that he actually stopped and listened, and it was intense. But Robert had told police that Emily never came back to the room. So now the timeline didn't make sense, and with nowhere left to go, Robert changed his story again. Now he said that Emily did come back. Yes, they argued, and yes, it got loud, but after the fight, she stormed out and went to her car. And that's when the story took another unexpected turn. So, according to Robert, when Emily walked out to her car that night, a white pickup truck pulled up beside her. The driver, he said, was a huge guy, and of course he was wearing a cowboy hat. He told detectives the man started talking to Emily, and then, just like that, she got in the truck and they drove off together. He followed the truck out to the countryside, thinking maybe he could stop her from leaving. After a while, the truck pulled over and he got out to confront the guy. And what he described next sounded like something out of a bad action movie.
And I pull up, we start, beefing, and he comes running at me with a pipe. She jumps in front. Bah! Where'd he hit her? Right in the head. I mean, I was like, God.
That was it. He said he panicked, jumped back in his car, and drove off, without checking if Emily was okay or even calling 911 for help. He told detectives he'd been scared ever since, imagining she might be in a hospital somewhere, or locked away in some old barn. It sounded dramatic, painful, and strangely specific. And just when it seemed like maybe the story could be true, Robert offered to show them the place where it all happened. So detectives agreed. They loaded into their SUV and Robert led them into the desert, deep into an empty stretch of land outside of Carlsbad. He kept talking the whole time, saying maybe they'd find something, a clue, maybe even the man in the cowboy hat. But when they arrived, detectives asked Robert to stay behind by the car. They were going to look around on their own. And that's when they saw it. 2 long drag marks in the dirt, leading from the side of the road toward an old, rusted tin building. They followed the trail in silence. Around the corner of the structure, one of the detectives looked up and stopped cold.
Look up towards the north there. I can see an obvious body. It was a pretty bad scene, a lot of blood, especially around the head area.
And there was no mistaking who it was. It was Emily Lambert. Her body had been discarded in a field like trash. Naked, except for a bra, with blunt force injuries to her head and ligature marks around her neck. Her face was swollen, her skull fractured, and worst of all, investigators discovered she had been dragged over 500 feet before being left there. The missing person case was now a homicide investigation, and the man who claimed to love her was running out of stories. When detectives walked back to the car and told Robert what they'd found, he looked surprised. But not devastated, not like a man who just learned his girlfriend was dead. Just quiet, like someone who already knew what they would find. Still, the detectives had one loose thread, the cowboy hat story. If Robert was telling the truth, maybe security footage could prove it. So they headed to a nearby Walmart, hoping their highway-facing camera caught the white pickup Robert described. And it did, sort of. Roughly 30 minutes after Emily walked out of the bar, a white pickup truck did appear on Walmart security footage. It pulled into the lot and stopped by the gas pumps. Still, detectives did their due diligence. They tracked down and questioned every man who left the bar within 30 minutes of Emily that night. One by one, they ruled them out. The timelines didn't line up. None of them had the opportunity to pick up Emily and commit the horrific act that followed. At least not according to Robert's version of events. With no solid leads, investigators turned back to the hotel lobby footage. That's when everything changed. They cued the video to 11:48 p.m., the exact time Robert claimed Emily got into the truck. But instead of Emily, they saw someone else on camera. It was Robert. He was walking through the frame and then disappeared for a few seconds. When he came back, he looked agitated and was on his phone. Moments later, the receptionist handed him a new key card. He grabbed it and turned without a word. Detectives started putting the pieces together. If Robert needed a new key, it meant Emily had locked him out of the room. He was calling her and she wasn't answering. He was angry, and now he had a way back in. At this point, investigators were sure Robert knew more than he was letting on. To be sure, investigators subpoenaed both Robert and Emily's phone records. And what they found was chilling. Just minutes after Robert grabbed that new key card, he left a voicemail on Emily's phone. And what he said made it clear. There had been a struggle in that room. Something violent. Something he wasn't telling them. So they confronted him. And finally, Robert confessed. And what he revealed was worse than any of the detectives had imagined. After Robert opened the door with the hotel key card, the argument from the bar picked up right where it left off.
She was like, I'm getting my shit and I'm leaving. We're done, it's over, I'm leaving you, this and that. And I was like, really? And then she was wanting to drive. That's what started the whole altercation in the room. She wanted to drink and drive all the way back to Fort Worth. I said, no, you're not leaving.
That's when things got physical. He claimed they started shoving each other, then Emily bit his arm, and that's when he snapped. He started kicking her over and over until she collapsed on the floor like a puddle of herself.
She was still okay. She got up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? I was pretty shocked. I was able to get her down, and I was shooting crazy. I was tripping out. I didn't know what was going on, and then I kicked her again there.
Where'd you get her that time? Think in the face. Okay.
Emily dropped again, and this time she didn't get back up. Robert loaded her unconscious body into her car and drove off into the darkness. Not to get help or take her home, but to finish what he started. And what he did next was beyond cruel. It was evil. He drove her to a remote, empty field, and when she started waking up, he hit her with an air pump he found in the car. But even after that, she was still alive. So he tied a rope to her neck, attached it to the back of the car, and started driving. Let that sink in. She was bleeding, conscious, aware. The man that she loved and trusted was dragging her through the dirt like garbage.
The injuries sustained while she was being drugged by the vehicle, she was bleeding at that point, so the heart was still pumping. And then he hits her in the back of the head with the pump till she's deceased.
And when that wasn't enough, he grabbed the air pump again and finished her off. Then he left her there, alone, dumped behind a rusted metal sheet, like she was nothing. While her family back in Tennessee assumed she was still enjoying her romantic weekend, Emily Lambert was already dead. Robert returned the next morning to check if she was still alive. When he found her body, he didn't call for help. He just drove away and started telling his made-up story. To cover his tracks, he dumped the air pump, a bag of Emily's clothes, and the rope that he used to drag her body. He later changed his story again, now claiming Emily had never regained consciousness during the air pump attack.
It's something I would never do if I was sober or straight thinking I'm a really good, nice guy. I mean, take care of my daughter. I love her kids. I can't let it go that I actually did that to her.
When he finished his confession, officers immediately placed him in handcuffs. As he sat in jail awaiting trial, prosecutors made one thing clear. They were going for life without parole. Their case was clear. Emily had been taken against her will. She was still breathing when he drove her out to that field, and he intended to kill her. But just when it seemed like the story couldn't get more devastating, prosecutors revealed something no one saw coming: a voicemail. Robert had accidentally pocket-dialed Emily's phone, and the call captured everything. The struggle, the fear in her voice, the moment things turned. Emily's mom described it as the hardest thing she'd ever listened to.
The hardest part for me during the trial was to find Robert pocketed his phone, and I guess it made a call to Emily's phone and recorded, I guess, what were her last words. It was hard. It was really hard.
In the distorted audio, you can hear Emily crying, terrified, her voice shaking. It was a window into the last few minutes of her life and the man who took it from her. On May 15, 2015, the jury came back in just a few hours. Robert Early was found guilty of first-degree kidnapping and murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But long after the verdict, that voicemail still echoes, because it doesn't just capture Emily's final moments. It captures the exact second her killer stopped pretending to love her and showed who he really was. And tragically, Emily's case is far from rare. In the US, nearly half of all women killed are murdered by a current or former partner. Most of them, like Emily, never saw it coming until it was too late.